There is something that fewer people have accomplished than walking on the moon, and that is diving to a depth of 300 meters underwater. Of course, that's not my claim. It's what Diver Dave and his friends say. Yes, that Diver Dave. This summer's hit game of the same name was a tribute to him. This seemingly ordinary man ended up staying underwater forever in order to keep his promise. Let's go back to a few months ago. At that time, Dave was 50 years old. Although he had only been diving for 5 years, he had already gone underwater more than 300 times. As a thrill-seeking middle-aged man, the coral reefs that most divers love no longer satisfied him, and even centuries-old shipwrecks didn't seem challenging enough. Gradually, he even stopped diving in the ocean altogether. Dave's most frequent destination was the desert, the Bushman's Hole in South Africa, nearly 300 meters deep and filled with all kinds of deadly risks, enough to help him escape social pressures and a midlife crisis. Of course, Dave wasn't looking to die. It was just that compared to life on land, the underwater world was a place of complete freedom. Once he achieved neutral buoyancy, gravity disappeared and his bulky body became light. Here, he was still that brave explorer of the unknown he had been as a child. Before him, only one person had ever seen the deepest part of Bushman's Hole and had nearly been trapped forever in the silt. But Dave was confident he wasn't just an ordinary diver. He planned not only to reach the bottom of the world's third deepest freshwater cave, but also to walk around and, for the first time, lay down guidelines for future visits. From a god's eye view, today was the most pivotal moment in Dave's life. Not because of the world records he had just broken, but because, in the darkness at the bottom, there was a witness to his feet. Dave recognized the body. His name was Dion Dreyer. 10 years earlier, Dion had died while diving in Bushman's Hole. Since his body couldn't be found, Dion's parents had placed a memorial plaque at the cave entrance. In this way, every diver who visited Bushman's Hole would know that Dion was resting somewhere in the depths below. That very day, Dave contacted Dion's parents and made a promise. He would bring their son back to them. This promise sparked considerable controversy, with many people questioning whether Dave was just trying to play the hero. After all, just reaching nearly 300 meters underwater is dangerous enough, let alone performing physical tasks at that depth. For every extra minute spent at the bottom, an additional hour of decompression is required during ascent. On top of that, the mixed gases used at such depths can cause severe narcosis or even poisoning under high pressure. No sane person would willingly take on any extra weight that could introduce more uncertainty. Dave was undeterred and did everything he could to prepare. In addition to supplies, backup rescue, and simulation training, the most critical issue was the transportation of the body. Because experts speculated that only the bones remained in order to avoid damage, and for the remains, he specially made a custom body bag. To avoid exhaustion, he gathered 8 other divers to form a relay underwater, gradually bringing the body up bit by bit. On the day of the operation, his task was to follow the cable left from last time to reach the same spot at the bottom of Bushman Cave, put the body into the bag, and hand it over to the divers waiting dozens of meters above him. If everything went smoothly, Dean's body would surface after 80 minutes. If everything went smoothly, Dave would complete the deepest body recovery in diving history. Although no one truly understood why Dave was so determined, one thing was really certain. This dive held a special meaning for him. From Dean's parents, Dave learned Dean's story. He was 20 years old when he died, the same age as Dave's own son. Diving, motorcycles, hunting, Dean had loved all kinds of adventures since he was a child. He would often boastfully tell his parents that he wanted to be a warrior exploring the unknown. 10 years ago, at Christmas, Dean was invited to take part in the preliminary exploration of Bushman's Cave, and he never came back. But it was precisely because of these achievements that later explorers were able to carry out expeditions in the cave. In a sense, without Dean, there would be no Dave's world record in Bushman's Cave. The reason for their encounter had already been set in motion 10 years ago. Dean was not only a witness to Dave, but also a guide he had never met. The moment Dave came into contact with Dean's body, the entire operation was already on the verge of collapse. All the plans were based on the assumption that the body had already decomposed into a skeleton, but in reality, except for the head and hands, the rest of the body had mummified and achieved neutral buoyancy, floating and swaying in front of Dave, leaving him at a loss for what to do. He tried to put the feet into the bag, but the body simply flipped over. He tried putting the light source aside and used both hands to handle the lamp's cord, but the more he pulled, the more tangled it became around himself. Faced with such a major variable, Dave had to decide whether to continue or give up before his mind became numb. However, it seemed he had already made up his mind the moment he entered the water. Dave's light disappeared into the depths and Bushman Cave returned to darkness. 80 minutes had long since passed. Dave was not coming back. Dave's friends held an impromptu memorial for him at the entrance of the cave. It seemed that this confident man had finally met his. They tasted the bitterness of failure. So, does the story end here with regret? A few days later, as the team members began clearing the cables with the help of local police in preparation to leave, they discovered two bodies not far below the water's surface, one so swollen it was unrecognizable, and the other appearing to have been dead for many years. The two corpses were tightly bound together with rope, and they were connected to the cable that led to the surface. It turned out that Dave had already succeeded. He fulfilled his promise at the cost of a price one can only pay once in a lifetime. In the final moments of his life,